Welcome back to the Harrowings podcast. We're going to do a voiceover for Keeping the Dead Alive Part 3 that I wrote earlier today. And this is the Harold B. Gill LLC primary purpose, the Harold B. Gill Foundation LLC's primary purpose. And it is being recorded now at approximately 8:38 p.m. And it starts out with an image of my father's 13 stars flag flying just below his study window. A visit to my late father's study was like stepping back in time in many ways, and I'm grateful that I thoroughly photographed it as it was when he shuffled off this mortal coil. He spent his life bringing the ordinary people of 18th century Williamsburg back to life through historical research, and in my way, I'm carrying that on as well here on Harrowings. I'm hopeful that more than a few of you will be moved to support this ongoing work. I'm picking up the pace of making postings, and this is one of a series. With that bit of housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to introduce the three Harold B. Gills in the single photograph that I have of the three of us together. And if you open the Keeping the Dead Alive Part 3, you'll see us standing in my grandfather's backyard in 1978 or so, I believe. My grandfather ran the Gill Electric Company for many years, and an article about it was one of the first phase of the harrowings of my father's many papers. The full story is one of the many publications that is behind the paywall here. It is a way of segregating the publications that relate directly to the Harold B. Gill Foundation LLC as opposed to the many that are reflective of my diverse interests. My grandfather died sometime around midnight between August 12th and August 13th of 1979. My father and I had spent a week with him while my grandmother, the late Catherine Elizabeth Gill, maiden name Jane, was undergoing cataract surgery and recovery at Mary Washington Hospital in Fredericksburg. Dad and I would drive my grandfather back and forth to the hospital from their home on Monrovia Road. I was making model airplanes to fill the time when we were visiting. I remember my father and grandfather talking politics. My grandfather, although married to a native of Long Island, was not at all liberal. To my father, also conservative, was practically a socialist by comparison. He was distressed at how distressed my grandfather was about the political scene at the time. Jimmy Carter, as you'll recall, was our president then. We left around noon on August 12th, and my cousin, Catherine Poe, took over the duties of looking after her grandparents. Around midnight that night, our phone rang once, which woke everybody up. Interestingly, the same thing happened to a number of other relatives. Soon after, we got a call from my cousin that my grandmother had come downstairs to find my grandfather unresponsive. The book he was reading at the time, The Cactus Air Force, had fallen from his chair in the living room. He had died of cardiac arrest. His own younger brother, Charles Clinton Gill Jr., CC to the family, had passed away similarly just a short time earlier and had served in New Guinea during World War II. The Cactus Air Force was about the war in New Guinea, so I can't but think that he was missing CC and reading it to keep him close. My grandfather had a substantial library, and I'm grateful to have quite a number of books that he had in his collection still with me today. But I digress. The family assembled in the wee hours of August 13th. My family drove from Williamsburg, and I learned to drink coffee. I drank a lot of it. My grandmother was, of course, distraught. She had been told by her doctors not to cry, however, having just had that eye surgery. She was given a prescription of Valium to help her get through the preparations. A viewing was held at the funeral home, and the funeral was held with a graveside service at Graham Cemetery. I remember very little about this other than that I was one of my grandfather's pallbearers. When I start out writing these things, I never know just where they are likely to lead, but here I am, keeping a bit of my own memory intact by telling myself a story from when I was 16 years old. I had already encountered death when one of my fellow Fifers fell through the ice of Queens Lake in Williamsburg, Virginia on January 21st, 1976, if my memory is correct. My first dog had met the same fate the day before, apparently, but we wouldn't learn about it for a few weeks until his body was discovered in the First Lake in the Birchwood Gardens neighborhood where my family lived between June 1963 and March 1977. Love remains, and there I've made a hyperlink to Tal Wilkenfeld's song of the same title. And this was the deep print that has finally arrived now that my father has also passed on. And love is the only thing that is truly eternal. We are all the products of the creative energy, which is the essence of love. Here we preserve many and we reach back into the Revolutionary War, which was all about the love of freedom. In the following photograph, and I can't really show you that too well right now, but it's one of the grandson of Jones Gill, who served in the Revolutionary War as a member of the Charles City County Militia in Virginia and later settled at Indian Creek. He stands next to his son, great grandson, held by his grandson. Again, that's left to right in the photograph, and I might be able to show that to you. Why not? There we go. William Samuel Gill, Charles Clinton Gill, Sr., and in the arms of Harold Gill Sr., Harold Gill Jr., as a wee babe. About 1933. So, what's really revolutionary here in our world? To me, it's love. The motivating factor for opening my own personal history while also driving forward to protect, preserve, and publish the creative works of my father. He was nothing if not a great lover of all things to do with history, invariably lit up when sharing his research with anyone who wanted to join in. During the 1980s, he ended up founding and co-editing the Journal of Historic Trades, and he returned to Williamsburg from directing the Georgia Historical Society for a brief time. And in this picture, I am with him as he talks with the then Director of Human Resources at Colonial Williamsburg during his retirement party ahead of moving to Savannah to take up that latter role as the Director of the Georgia Historical Society. And there it is. You can see me there looking quite young, as I was only about 20 at the time, or 22, somewhere in there, maybe 23. So to Dad's left in that photograph was Dr. Edward M. Riley, who had hired him in December 1961 to serve as associate, or rather a research assistant, and then he was swiftly promoted to being an associate and then to historian before leaving the Department of Research. He made such a reputation for himself in Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, however, that the Director of Historic Trades went to extraordinary lengths to get him back to the foundation. My mother was also not too keen to leave her post as the registrar of the Department of Collections, a position she had held since 1972 and from which she would retire in 2004. So it was that my father was back in by 1986 and received his 25th anniversary bowl soon after. I believe this may be the official portrait from that ceremony or one other. I'm not sure which one it was. But there you can see Earl L. Souls Jr., my father, Harold B. Gill Jr. in the middle, and Dennis O'Toole, who was then vice president of the historic area. Even after taking a proffered early retirement option at the age of 58 in 1991, my father continued working, assisting and editing the Colonial Williamsburg Journal's articles until 2015, and died at the age of 91 with work in progress still there by his computer in his study where this article began, talking about that flag that was flying under his study window. And there's the computer set up with one of the advertisements he was working on for a book on advertisements of tradesmen in the 18th century. He was going through lots of advertisements, and I've got a collection of them, and I've got more to do there. Luckily, he left them fairly well organized. So I'll conclude this installment of Keeping the Dead Alive here. This is the third of a series. You can find them all at Harrowings at halgill.substack.com. And of course, go out and see the Harold B. Gill Foundation, LLC, at https://www.hbgfoundationllc, all one string, .org. So thank you again for joining, and we're going to close this segment here at 10 minutes.